Okay. From this point, I come to the international and political level and talk about 2 or 3 smaller topics in this issue. First, please to the next, I go to the Conference of European Bishops' Conferences, which is an organization dealing with any topics, but they have a special commission, bishops and delegates for relations of Catholic Church with Muslims in Europe. I attended 2 meetings. One of the meetings you see here, it's a typical like a gremium of the Catholic Church. If you don't think about the secretary here, it's all men, no woman. See, no woman. From more than 20 different European countries, bishops and other delegates discussing about Islam and the account of Islam in Europe, exchanging our experiences here. That meeting was headed by Cardinal Touron. You see him here and also on the next slide. He, meanwhile, passed away. He was one of the most important cardinals in the Roman Curia, and he was in charge of this interreligious dialogue at that time when the meeting in Switzerland took place. One of the follow meetings in the next slide is in Albania, eastern part of Europe, where we met officials of the state, as well as the Catholic bishop and Roman institutions representatives, and Muslim and here Alevi people from Albania, again to think together about the dialogue on this international level. These international activities of the Catholic Church have an office in the Vatican, Pontificio Concilio per il Dialogo Interreligioso, council at that time for interreligious dialogue. Now it's called Dicasterium for Interreligious Dialogue, which is the center institution in the Catholic Church for this issue. Yeah. Maybe this initiative also has reached Taiwan, or the information about it. It has been discussed in Europe quite a lot. KAICID. Have you ever heard KAICID? No. This is short abbreviation for King Abdullah International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue. King Abdullah sounds Islamic, right? Is the former king of Saudi Arabia, who has decided to establish a center for interreligious dialogue on a diplomatic level. And this center was opened and also hosted by Austria in Vienna in 2013, 2013, I think. It was an initiative highly discussed and in controversial discussion. On one hand, very good to have an international center for dialogue, and it's a good idea that even Saudi Arabia, a very conservative player in the world community, wants such a dialogue center and also finances it with a lot of money. On the other hand, the discussion, does it make sense to talk with Saudi Arabia and to accept this initiative? Saudi Arabia being one of the countries with respect to religious freedom on the very backside of all countries. Can we talk to them? And this discussion has been ongoing the whole time of the existence of this center. Now, the center opened, here the logo, and the next slide shows you Vienna Imperial Palace, where the opening ceremony took place. You see the next slide, inside 800 international guests, high-level performance with all respects. Much money spent by the Saudi Arabian government for this issue. Yep. And opening speeches from the leading countries of this center. Via video, you have former King of Saudi Arabia as the first speaking here. Next picture shows us the King of Spain, who was always a country engaged in this center. Third picture is our Austrian president, Heinz Fischer, as hosting country. And the fourth is again Cardinal Turhan from the Vatican, also interested in establishing and supporting this center. During the opening, and the board of this Kai seat is not an Islamic or only Christian Islamic issue, but it's an interreligious board. It started with here a Buddhist representative from Japan. This is the official head and director of the Kai seat from Saudi Arabia, an Iranian intellectual, Hindu Swami. You have Catholic, you have Protestant, you have Orthodox representatives. So broad board of directors. By the way, maybe you remember him? Ban Ki-moon. Ban Ki-moon was Secretary General of the United Nations in those days, also present at this ceremony. Yeah, here you see the other members of the board. Okay. During the opening ceremony, outside the Imperial Palace, you had demonstrations against this center, against Saudi Arabia, against Saudi Arabian policy. Religious, yeah. The center was based then in this house in the city center of Vienna, and I sometimes took the opportunity to go there with my students just to show them, let them introduce what's going on here. Next picture shows a group of my students where we talk to the representatives of the center and get the information what they are doing. Here I'm taking part in another conference organized by this Kai seat in Rabat in Morocco, where they gathered the official representatives for education of about 30 Muslim countries, Muslim-dominated countries, in order to discuss with them the possibilities of interreligious education. You see on the next slide the topic, l'éducation interreligieuse. That means this Kai seat center spent the money to host people from 30, 40, mainly Muslim countries, in order to think about interreligious education. I had a short paper also at this occasion and talked to them about the Austrian system of religious and interreligious education. They were quite astonished about the possibility a state recognizing many religions, religious class in the compulsory compendium of education for everybody, because most of them could only imagine either no religious education at school, or if any, then Islamic. But again, to tell them, let them see what is possible is, I think is a good way. Yeah, here is another picture of the assembly of the about 60, 80 people who came together here in Rabat several years ago. I also took another opportunity to see the work of Kai seat center. Peaceful Myanmar initiatives. You probably know about the difficulties in Myanmar between not only the nowadays military government, but also before the military government took over. You had the problem that there are some Buddhist monks who were very much pledging for a mainly Buddhist country, Myanmar, and expelling the Muslim population, the Rohingyas. So there were peace initiatives in Myanmar, Peaceful Myanmar Initiative, which tried to bring religious leaders together to settle this conflict. And also this initiative was financed by the Kaisid. They built, in the next picture here at the monastery, a center for dialogue where representatives of religions, youth of religions, different occasions come together and talk about each other and how to manage the relations. And the abbot of this monastery where the center is located is also very much engaged in peace talks, like here in one of the meetings I had with him when I visited this center. Yeah. An issue where I don't show you any pictures, but it's important for me to mention it also. It's not the international, but more the internal political level of our dialogue in Austria. Of course, a problem you probably know from the whole world, Islamism, Islamic fundamentalism, rising with terror attacks and so on. And on the other hand, the reaction of Western world, I speak about Austria now, is fear of Islam and combined with hate speech against Muslims. All Muslims are terrorists. This is the reflection you often hear in media and in population. Especially initiatives against Muslim refugees. They are too many, we should not bring them in, they bring their conflicts into our country. I think this is also a very important issue for interreligious dialogue, to show that not every Muslim and not every refugee is a terrorist. But it's quite hard to bring this point into communication and discussion, because many people have their way of perception, Muslim, dangerous, terrorism. We try to do our best in this situation. Yeah. Have I a few more minutes, or should I? Okay. Maybe a last initiative I want to tell you about. It's an initiative taken by our Austrian Foreign Ministry. It's official state level. I was astonished myself that they established a task force for interreligious and intercultural dialogue. I thought, why does the state form a task force for interreligious dialogue with the separation of state and religion we have in Austria? But anyway, I was invited to join on certain occasions, and it was quite an interesting experience for me. My first meeting in place was a conference in Indonesia. You see, Indonesia, Austria, interfaith and intercultural dialogue, public lectures, meetings of an Austrian delegation with Indonesian delegates. And about 1 month ago, there was a visit from an Indonesian delegation to Austria with the same aim, interreligious dialogue. It's a diplomatic level where the state, Austria, tries to form conditions of, or to provide conditions of exchange on a level which is civil society, not only for diplomats and politicians. And they involve universities, that's why I have been in religious communities and other stakeholders in this group. We had, next picture, several round tables and discussions within this Austrian-Indonesian group. And the next slide shows us that it's not with every country. Austria is a small country, it cannot afford all these contacts, but especially with Indonesia, with Iran, with China, and now starting also with Morocco, we have this political interreligious dialogue. So quite an interesting experience. Yeah. Let me conclude with a few last remarks from my side, which you find on the next slide. Please. First, this interreligious dialogue is based on or related to the respect of every human being. And this is inherent to religions as well as to secular humanistic philosophies. For me, that's the first principle, why dialogue. Second, interreligious dialogue needs both personal commitment of individuals, but also social structures. That means commissions or panels or occasions or houses where we can meet and do this dialogue. And the third, maybe special European perspective, but I would be eager to hear about your opinion on this. The quality of interreligious encounter and dialogue will be more and more become a crucial landmark for the credibility of religion in general. That means the way we are or are not successful in interreligious dialogue does more and more affect also the credibility of religion in general. People in Europe do not only think, what about Christianity, what about Islam? They say, oh, look at these religions, they fight each other. What is religion? We don't want religion. If we are not able to find a good way of interreligious contacts among religions, the role of religion in general will be declining in the public sphere in Europe. That's a feeling we have in Europe now. Maybe Taiwan is the same or it's completely different. I'm eager to hear from you. Yeah, the concluding slide is the invitation to you to share your Taiwanese experiences with me. Of course, also to ask questions about something I told you. It's up to you. I thank you for your patience and your listening.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Markus Ladstätter, for this interesting presentation on many levels. We are invited now for questions, for sharings. Who would like to ask the first question? Maybe I will start because I think about the Taiwanese experiences. And surely in Europe, the interfaith dialogue is very important. Yeah? Islam, Christianity, Judaism. Here in Taiwan, the most people are not Christians, not Muslim and not Jewish, but folk religion is the main faith. Do you have experience, this is my questions on you, do you have experience of interreligious dialogue with folk religion? Maybe also what I call Catholic or Christian popular religion in Europe. There are also many new movements now. How can the dialogue be done in this way? So not big religions, it's easier, you can say, but on this very different level in Taiwan, you know, our experience is that we have no one folk religion, so no one institution, but there are many temples, many beliefs. How, what do you propose, or what do you think about this dialogue?
Mm-hmm. If I understand correctly, folk or popular religion in Europe and the dialogue with this entity.
Yeah, should be especially about this.
Yeah. Well, I think the main issue is popular religion in Europe is not a very organized one. So it's a question who would be representatives of this religious dialogue. Of course, what you every time can do and find is dialogue of life in this level. People meet and talk together, whatever they believe, and we have this dialogue of life. But popular religion, again, I don't see, I don't see the level of organization in Austria which is maybe prevalent here. You have no temple of popular religion in Austria. People who do not belong to a specific religion but are religious, they sometimes go to a church, but they go to the forest or to the river or on a mountain. And there is a group meeting and vanishing. They do not maintain temples or institutions which preserve. So a dialogue on a more structural level is not in sight from my side.
What about some customs in the Catholic Church or Christianity? No, I know not too much about Austria, but in Poland there are also many popular customs in the Catholic communities.
So they are baptized, the customs, I think. Of course, you find lots of practices among Catholics and other people, practices also in or around Catholic churches, which do not reflect the main teaching of the Catholic Church. Let's put it this way. You buy black candles at a pilgrimage center in order to guarantee a good weather for your harvest or for your trip. And you take this candle and go into the basilica, the church, and ask the priest for consecrating it. So you find practices like this. You find lots of practices, new religious movements within the church, outside religious communities, youth movements, some of them very Catholic, some of them more in distance. And you find also quite an interesting phenomenon in Austria and other European countries also. You find groups of people declaring themselves as atheists, but they want to be recognized as a religious community as atheists. So they want, for instance, the state also to pay and install atheist religious classes. They say it's injustice that the religions get it and we don't get it. The problem is, who can representative atheism? You need a group, and not all atheists think the same and would agree. So this is the question with this.
Thank you very much. One more question? Howden?
Thank you, Professor. I want to add, in Taiwan, most people are friendly to every religion. So they think every religion is good. And so if some preacher come to Taiwan and they'll feel they're really hard to spread their religion, or like Christian, they want to spread gospel to Taiwanese people, and they feel that's so difficult. And if you do these things too much, like tell them who is true God, and they will think, oh, I don't like it. So in Taiwan, spread gospel and communicate with, don't want to, not just to spread gospel. And maybe some people will more like this behavior. So in Taiwan, communicate and spread gospel, which one is more important or better things? Very my interest.
I thank you very much for your contribution, which is not only a question but also a real contribution. Yes, first I want to reflect. Yes, I feel that Taiwanese people, Taiwanese society seems to me a religious-friendly society. Religion is something positive, or religious practice. It might be a difference to European perspectives today. This is a difference. Second, I want to stress again the first level of interreligious dialogue I mentioned was the dialogue of life, which is the basis and the mainly and the important one. It's more important than theological structures in the second, third, fourth floor. The third is your question, if I understood you right, dialogue or propagation and mission. I think interreligious dialogue is not the same as missionary activities. It's a different field. Interreligious dialogue can never have the aim to convince anybody to become Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or whatever I am. Dialogue, the first condition for dialogue is to respect the partner as the one who he or she is, and not to try to convince her. What is the sense of dialogue? The sense is not making converts. The sense of dialogue is, and the aim of dialogue is to learn who are you, to explain who am I, to grow in this experience, to find something new in your identity and also in my identity. I remember quite well when I started to engage in interreligious dialogue, some of Austrian churchmen, even bishops, they first said, oh, good idea, you in dialogue, fine thing, and then, but if you do so much on dialogue, is there not a danger you use your Christian faith when you learn so much about other faiths? I thought about it and said, no, my experience is the other way around. When I learn about other religions, of course I see something in other religions which is I'm cautious about, and some whereas I'm happy to be Christian. Some things are attractive, and I say, in my religion I don't find this. It's attractive in Buddhism or in Islam, like this. But I always had the feeling, the more I engaged in dialogue, the more I grew in my own faith and was rooted in my own faith. Not because all other religions are bad or worse than mine, even if they are fine. I sometimes found phenomena in other religions which I also find in my own, but I never thought about it. For instance, as a young man, actually I never could understand monasticism in Christianity. Why to leave the world and go to some remote places and shut your windows, and doesn't make sense. I learned other religions. I learned Tibetan monasteries in other countries. And then I found what this idea has, what sense does it make? I found monasticism in Eastern Christian traditions, mainly in Egyptian desert monasteries. And then I thought, oh, our Catholic Benedictine or other monasteries, they are more or less the same idea. I would never have appreciated this phenomenon, monasticism, in my own religion if I had not met Tibetan monasteries, monks, and discussed with them and so. So real dialogue leads you to your own roots. Of course, you can never exclude that dialogue also results in maybe a conversion from this side to that or the other way around. But it's not the aim. If I am that convincing in dialogue that my dialogue partner says, oh, what you represent here is attractive for me also, it's not my intention to do this, but it can happen. I don't know if the other way around also could happen. I don't want to exclude. A real dialogue is always an open story. And as a Christian, I would say what is happening in the heart in a dialogue in the end, it's not my part as partner of this dialogue. This is the part of God himself, but not mine. So converting is not the aim of dialogue. Maybe this is a short contribution to your thoughts.
Thank you. Please, yes.
The spring break is over, and in the church we're celebrating Easter, but in the Taiwanese household we're having the Thanksgiving ceremonies to worship our ancestors. So as a Christian, I have mixed feelings how to do the dialogues with my family. And I was very thankful that I'm a Protestant and my church pastor had given a very wonderful preaching sermon. And I would say that it was so good, because here in Taiwan, if the pastor knows the holiday is coming and you're going back to home and you're going to the tomb and you're going to worship your ancestors, they just said, be friendly to your non-Christian parents, family. Respect them, but you don't worship ancestor. You only worship one God. Mm-hmm. And so I would like to talk about that preaching that helps me a lot. There was Presbyterian church pastor. He says, in the Old Testament, you see there are many, many ancestors, like Abraham and lots of Jacob and lots of ancestors, but they all sinned. So the consequence of sin is curse, punishment. So the Jewish people, they respect their ancestors, but they don't worship them. Because if Taiwanese family go to their household in the top floor, usually we have a special place to worship your ancestor. There's a little tablets, wooden tablets. And the pastor says it's a symbol of the Chinese worships. Male domineering societies, it's a cult that you worship, you don't worship, you did not really worship your ancestor, but you worship your family God, family ghost. So as you worship more of the family ghost, the curses and the inheritance diseases or inherited sins will carry on. The pastors just put out things like this, and so as I go back, yes, I'm married and I have my husband's side and I have my mother's side, and in my mother's side I still have my mother's side and my father's sides. So this is a good time for Taiwanese people to live with your family. After you worship, you sweep the tomb, you make sure the weeds are taken care of. Normally Taiwanese family would gather together and have a big feast. Maybe that's just once in a year gathering, eat together. And so I think there was a very nice time that you interact with them, and normally that's the time that family problems appear. And some people have marriage problems, others have children's problems, and you just talk to them and you pray for them. And you share with them how you deal with your problem in Christian manners, and how God, that's the way you can only do. To love your family and to respect them, and once they have problems, you pray with them, you tell them how you deal with the problems. So here in Taiwan, spreading gospel to your non-Christian family is a very difficult thing. It takes lots of time, maybe 20 years, 30 years. As your non-Christian parents see that your life is different, you are so blessed, your life is so easy, they will ask you, how come your life is so good? And you tell them, God bless me. And when I have a problem, I don't do what you did, but I will do what the Bible wants us to do. So it's not easy. It's just, but I think this topic is just so new to me, and I would like to take this concept into this Taiwan. In Taiwan, probably 80% of the populations are non-Christian. You have to respect them. You have to listen to their practices, but you don't criticize them. Yeah.
Thank you for your contribution. I don't have to add very much what you said. I think when I got it right, as you say, you explained very clearly the difference between worshipping on this hand and respecting on the other hand. This is an important issue, I think. The second is, yes, love each other and be in contact with family is on the main level of life. And it's not this is the basis we should do also as Christians. A favorite verse in the Bible with this respect for me is in 1 Peter chapter 3:15, I think. He said, be ready every moment to give witness of what your heart is full. That's the task of a Christian. Not to preach and preach and preach and preach and preach. Witness. Witness means, and be ready, also means maybe wait till you are asked, and not only talk. And you are asked only if your life is a way of life which is convincing other people, not your thoughts or your words only. So this would be the attitude I would enter dialogue. Thank you. Maybe you have to add something. Luis.
The father of Professor Ladstätter was my classmate in high school, 8 years. I saw him growing up. 你们都了解，so 很深的关系。Now, an experience from Austria and Taiwan. About, let's say, 20 years ago, I invited friends from Austria, Yonan, Yoni, about 15 persons. And we spent, dear friends, we spent 3 days in Kaohsiung, Shoushan, 3 days. Religious dialogue. We want to experience, to be with them, with the monks. And they invited some leading monks from Korea to teach us properly Buddhism. We were in I was asked to translate from Chinese to German, from German to Chinese. May God bless us. You understand? And a real religious dialogue. Questions, how do you see the mystery of God? One asked a Buddhist monk, and he said, if I remember well, not properly a person, but an absolute mystery. And I keep silent. People were listening. Good. And at the end, on the third day, we had a wonderful session and sharing that we continue our dialogue as friends. They nearly said brothers and sisters, as friends, and we continue to learn. And then they gave us, and this remains with me forever, they gave us a gift, a chart, and written is there in Chinese, 友谊永恒, friendship forever. 友谊永恒. Beautiful. It remains with me. I'm now 62 years in Taiwan. I'm Taiwanese, 90 years of young. It remains with me forever. 友谊永恒, friendship forever. This is what dialogue, religious dialogue, will continue to promote. We suspect, as you, Professor, as you beautifully said, the basis is mutual respect. I don't want to force him to change his ideas, otherwise I beat him. No. I fully respect him, but I want to open myself and share with him my opinion and listen to him, and by listening, gradually learning something. And in this sense, 友谊永恒, friendship forever, I experience as a Christian the presence of the living, loving God. He is there with our Buddhist friends. I experience it 100%. I can never doubt. It's an experience of religious dialogue. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks. Would you like to say some comment?
Luis, what you so vividly and again quietly explained is exactly from my heart. And maybe my many words I made before gave some field, some Austrian and European and facets of this, but the core is this experience you're talking about. That's what I agree with you. Thank you.
We still have time for maybe one or two questions.
Thank you very much for your lecture. I'm Kim, I come from Japan, and I'm working at the Nanyang Institute for Religion and Culture. And I was very happy when you mentioned the Kai Seed, because I was invited here to 2013 by this opening ceremony, and we were invited to the military to the and we stayed in Hyatt Hotel in Wien, which I otherwise never experienced. So my question is not that. You mentioned about the dialogue of the religious experience. That reminds me of one story that I was told by my colleague. He's the father of SVD, and he said some about the dialogue between a Buddhist monk and the Catholic priest. They shared all the meditation and they sitting together for the play and for the eating and everything they shared. But at last, the Buddhist monk asked the Catholic priest, "Can I take part in the Eucharist? If you can baptize me, then I can take part in the Eucharist. I can get the blood of Christ. Can I?" asked the Buddhist monk. The Catholic priest answered, "My heart said yes, but my tradition says no." So I think that your story of the dialogue, the religious experience, she said the mystery of God. The dialogue aims at the participation in the mysteries. So and that story moved me very much. Also, I have no final answer to that story. Can you give me some clue to answer or to go the direction that my colleague said in his remember? What could be the, or what could be the way of sharing this religious experience together? Is there any final limit that you cannot pass over, or what do you think is my question?
Thank you for sharing your experience and especially sharing this very focused question. The theoretical answer you gave from the Catholic side is correct, I say, of course, nothing to add or so. The question is, what is the spiritual answer for me now? Maybe two aspects. One is the serious longing of the partner for taking part in the Eucharist in such a situation. Maybe it can also be answered by a spiritual understanding of communion, meaning not taking the bread as the real bread in communion, but believing that what communion is for, the unity with Christ, is happening also beyond eating the bread. So spiritual communion is a first idea. Second idea, I remember very well one special Christian Catholic Eucharist where also people from other religions were taking part as guests. And the priest said, when communion was, everybody who is convinced that this form of communion of bread is a real community with Christ and something more, something special than simply eating the bread, is invited upon his own consciousness's decision to take part or not. I was very touched and moved by this ceremony. Even if you would say regulations, official regulations is something else. But it's maybe fulfillment of the heart of such regulations.
The time is almost over. Maybe the last question.
Sorry.
Please.
I have a question about the situations in Europe. That how many percentage of people still go to church as a, as we said, is the population, the Christian population in Europe?
You have to differentiate which Christian church or denomination is. The smaller churches, the percentage is higher. The larger churches, the percentage is lower. From my Catholic church, which is from number the biggest one in Austria, I would roughly say that roughly 5 till 10% of Catholics in Austria go to church every Sunday. But much more go to church on several occasions, be it Christmas, Easter, personal holidays or so. But regularly, every week, you have 5 to 10% practice.
I think so many other questions could be asked. Maybe later, somebody wants can also privately ask also Markus Ladstätter. But for now, I would like to thank you for this lecture, sharing, and also questions, answers. Let us continue the interreligious dialogue. I think there is much we can learn from Austria, and there is also something what Austria can learn from Taiwan. Thank you, Professor Ladstätter. Thank you for every guest and students for coming. Please give a big applause once more for Professor Ladstätter.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.